715-203-8897. Okay, thank you. Do we have, and Adrian, you're going to be running the meeting, but do you want me to just start with the agenda?
No, give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen, and we will have slides up from there that can guide us the rest of the way. So, hopefully you are all seeing the slide presentation now. Just the Open Space and Ecology Committee meeting slide to start. And here's the setup and introduction information that already Michelle went through. So, call to order. I suppose we sort of already did that. And next up we will have roll call, and just so that everybody is aware, for roll call and for any voting items, we do need to have every individual roll call vote for every one of those instances. So I will go ahead and just read off committee members by name. You can go ahead and unmute yourself to respond anytime we need to do that. So roll call. And I don't have you in alphabetical order, so I'm going to go through as I see you. Michelle Salmon.
Here.
Mary Rogers. Here. Carl Lamb.
Here.
Barbara Ebel.
Here.
Glenn Fieldman. You have to unmute. We have to hear you. Here. And note for the record that Ross Dykes is not currently present. We expect him a little bit later on. Okay. Adoption of the agenda.
Is there a move to adopt the current agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda as shown.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All those in favor? Adrian, do you want to do the roll call vote?
Sure. Michelle.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
Barbara.
Aye.
Glenn. Aye.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, and this would be from our March meeting.
Oh, we have oral communications first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oral communications.
I have not received anything to date.
Okay.
Bob, do you have anything via the text?
Bob, you're muted. Bob, are you having?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. So since there are no oral communications at this time, let's go on to approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any corrections or additions or items for the minutes from our February 19th meeting? Did we not? We didn't. Yeah, we didn't have a March or April meeting.
We had a special meeting in March, but the minutes were not yet ready.
Okay.
A little sooner than normal.
Okay. So any corrections to the minutes or any additions to the minutes from our February 19th, 2020 meeting? Is there a move to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes for February 2020.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Adrian, would you do roll call?
Yes. Michelle.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
Gwen,
I will abstain since I was absent in February.
Okay.
got it.
So the minutes are approved. New business is election of a new chair.
Hang on, we have March minutes as well.
Oh, we do?
We need to do, yes.
Oh, okay, great. I thought they weren't ready yet.
No. March minutes are ready.
Okay. So I have not seen the March minutes. Let's just take a second to look at March minutes.
There is one more page besides for what you see on the screen, although it is very short and just basic info. So this is the gist of the majority of it.
Do I have to raise my hand to talk, or?
No, you know what? Go ahead and just talk.
Okay.
Just try
Okay,
to
good.
make sure you're keeping yourselves muted when you're not talking. If I need to, I will go ahead and mute individual folks, and then you may need to raise your hand after that. But go ahead.
I just had a question. Did this deviate from what you attached, Adrian?
No.
Okay, thanks.
And page 2, is there, you may see that? Okay. Is there a move to approve the March minutes?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, Adrian?
Michelle,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Barbara,
Aye.
Gwen.
Yes.
Okay,
Great.
so moved. The next item on the agenda under new business, it's that time of the year, and it's time to elect a new chair and new vice chair. And the new chair will be taking over the meeting next month in July, and as will the vice chair. We are one person down on the committee right now. And can I go ahead and nominate someone, Adrian? Or is that appropriate? I'd like to nominate Mary Rogers. She's been on the committee for a number of years now, and I think it's her turn to sit in the hot seat. Do I have a second?
I would like to second that.
No, I want to second it.
Roll call, Adrian? Or Mary, do you have anything to say on
No, just railroader.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm the best person for it, but I will step up.
I would not have nominated you if I didn't think
I
you were
know.
the best person for it, Mary.
Thank you.
Your work on the committee has been invaluable.
It's
But do we have a
very
vote?
much a learn by doing sort of thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, Adrian, can we have a roll call?
Sure. Michelle,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Barbara,
Aye.
Gwen.
Yes.
All right.
So can I make a nomination for vice chair too while I'm at it? I nominate Carl. He's fairly new to the committee, but he's very dedicated. He comes to the meetings and he knows what's going on, and I think he would make a great vice chair. Does anyone want to second my nomination?
I second it.
Carl, do you have anything you'd
Yeah.
like to say?
Before we vote, maybe we should ask Carl.
It's a surprise, but I will accept it, and I'm happy to support in that role. So I know I'm newer, or a lot newer than a lot of the group, and I would accept that. So thank you for thinking about me.
Well, Carl, your dedication to the group has definitely been demonstrated. You ask very excellent questions. Your knowledge and background is really awesome, and I'm so happy you're on the committee. I really am. So can we have a vote, Adrian?
Yes, absolutely. Michelle,
Absolutely, yes.
Mary,
Yes. Thumbs up.
Carl,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
Gwen.
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
that'll be in effect starting on our July meeting. So we're looking forward to that. Next on the agenda is the 2016 and 2017 greenhouse gas emission inventories. Adrian?
Yes. So I hope this isn't too much of an eye chart here for everybody. We recently received our 2016 and 2017 greenhouse gas emissions inventories from the County Office of Sustainability that works with all of the cities to compile these for us. So I'm going to walk through a few of the kind of notable numbers that we saw. I'm going to focus primarily on the 2017 because in most cases, the 2016 follows, but there will be a few areas where I'll deviate. So hopefully these animations work here. Starting at the top of this table, our electricity emissions in the residential sector, you can see have dropped significantly in the last couple of years. This is due to Peninsula Clean Energy coming online with part of its customers in 2016 and then having full enrollment of the majority of customers in 2017. So a very substantial reduction there. Similarly, we see significant reductions from the commercial and industrial sector in their electricity, also due to Peninsula Clean Energy. However, we are seeing quite an increase in the natural gas usage in the commercial and industrial sector. So this is something to watch and be aware of and for us to be working on. I think this hopefully will be reduced by efforts through the building efficiency program. Of course, that will take a few years to show up, and so we'll have to see how this trends in between now and then. But you can see that, from 2005 to, really 2014, even 2015, it was, fairly stable. And then now 2014 to 2017, it's almost double.
Adrian?
Yes.
Do you have any clues as to why that might be happening?
Yeah, it was my question.
Not specifically. Unfortunately, we don't have a huge amount of insight into a lot of these numbers, frankly. We get aggregate data from PG&E, and even that is sometimes hard to get. So the best guess is, the potential addition of new large users or existing businesses and buildings increasing their usage significantly. So you guys probably know better than I, between 2014, 15, 16, 17, if there were additions of new large businesses or buildings in town that would have been driving those emissions in the natural gas sector. Otherwise, most likely it's just existing businesses or buildings increasing their usage, perhaps switching fuels from electricity to gas in some case. Although I don't think we see that happening all that often, but hard to really say with any kind of specificity.
Is this maybe a Mitch Bull question or maybe a Madison Davis question?
I mean, we could certainly try to ask. I don't know that that's. I don't know what that necessarily gets us, but.
Well, I think it's good to know what's happening so that we can address it, and perhaps because they both work with the business sector in town, perhaps they might have some insight.
Actually, I can think of one company that may be making a difference that has started since 2014, and that is a company on Cypress Lane that does laundry. They were not in operation in 2014 in Brisbane, and they are now in full operation. I wonder if they use gas dryers.
If something like that could potentially be the difference.
Yeah.
we would need to try to line up to see when they started. But I think we want to be careful to not, vilify any individual.
Oh, no, it's just the nature of the business.
Or necessarily call them out. But yes, I think, we asked first a bunch of these kinds of questions to the Office of Sustainability, where we had questions on, significant increases or decreases, and we're waiting to hear back to see if they have any insights, and then we can, kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah. I'm not calling them out in a negative way. It's just I'm trying to figure out, making sure it's not something like, wow, someone has a gas leak we don't know about, or something like that. But that is just the only one that I know would make a difference.
Karen,
I'm raising my hand now virtually.
Oh.
Are you the building efficiency program will also collect natural gas usage data? I mean, that's what it's going to give us in the future.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think we talked about when we looked at REACH codes was that cannabis business was kind of attached to using gas too.
Oh, do they?
I want to say there was concern that, let me see if I remember correctly, it was that there was concern that if there was any processing that they would need natural gas, but I thought that was more of a speculative, not that we had existing.
That may be true.
Okay. I could be misremembering that.
It was processing, yes.
Okay, that was what I thought. Anyhow, yes, we will have much more insight into this data once we start receiving data through the building efficiency program, and I think that will really help us to target businesses that may have opportunities to be more efficient or to, switch fuel, switch to electric appliances instead of natural gas. Yes, Glenn.
When will we start getting that data?
The first data would be submitted in May 2021. So,
a year.
About a year, yeah. We are. I'll get to this later on in staff updates, but we are still planning to have a voluntary compliance pilot, so we will get some data this year, but we're expecting that to be, a pretty minimal number of buildings or businesses. Mm-hmm. Majority would be next year.
So it seems there's also a significant drop in commercial, industrial, energy, and electrical, and then also solid waste.
Hang on, can I go back to the thing that's circled I haven't gotten to talk about yet? I clicked a little too soon while we were talking about natural gas. So give me a minute here, we'll get down there. So you see on the flip side that we have had a almost complete elimination of our direct access electricity sector. And this was one that was a little bit of a head scratcher at first. The county actually had really good reasoning behind it. And the bottom line is most likely this was overestimated in our prior inventories. So direct access is one of those fields where there are very few customers, and the county basically gets an aggregate of all of the county direct access customers that they then apportion by population to the different cities. And this past cycle, when they submitted their data request, they actually got data from, I believe it was the CPUC, maybe CEC, one of them. They got data that showed that we did not have any direct access customers in Brisbane, or we had maybe one, I think actually, because there is a very minor level of kilowatt hours if you dig into the data, but as far as that, converting that into metric tons of carbon dioxide, it's virtually nothing. So we had a little bit of a discussion about how to present this, and I think what we are thinking is probably the best approach is to keep the numbers as they are and probably just have a footnote anytime this would be presented publicly, explaining that our understanding is that the direct access is that the methodology changed and that the previous estimates were overstated.
Sounds good.
So let's see, the next thing.
Wait, Glenn's got her hand up.
Yep. Go ahead, sorry.
If we're going to do that, I mean, we should probably have another calculation, because if direct access shouldn't have been attributed to us in the first place, it's a pretty significant number, and our actual emissions reductions will be considerably less if we move the direct access elimination out of the equation. And I think that for the sake of accuracy, we should probably recalculate the reduction to take account of that.
I'm not sure if I followed you perfectly, but we do not know for certain that it was not accurate before. I mean, we assume based on estimation, but we only have actual data for 2016 and 2017. So we cannot say with any level of certainty what it was in those prior years. So I'm not suggesting we remove it from the prior inventories, but
I'm just saying it's really pretty significant. Looking at 2005, 5,000 some metric tons. That's about 10% of the 57,000 reductions that we're claiming. So I think it might be good to put, just to calculate it without that and put it beside the number that we already have.
I don't think that helps us in the way that you think it does. Lowering our initial inventory means that we will just show lower levels of reductions since then, which is not necessarily desirable. And like I said, we don't have any other better data for 2005. I don't think we can just not include the category entirely.
No, I mean, as I'm hearing Glenn, and Glenn, please correct me if I'm wrong, although we don't know that the prior data was overestimated with certainty, it sounded like that was a strong hunch. And so if the numbers are high, artificially high in the past and now correctly lowered, then we're taking credit for a reduction that we did not realize.
Exactly.
And that's probably not the best way to approach your carbon reduction.
Thank you, Barbara.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure that there is any better way to fix it based in my conversations with the people who do compilations of greenhouse gas emissions inventories. That was their recommendation.
Okay.
I mean, we had a pretty long conversation about what the options were for addressing it, and I don't think they ever suggested that it was appropriate for us to not include it in our baseline. So that would be.
Well, I would at least like to see us put an asterisk or something saying that these, the reductions that we have claimed may in fact not be that good because we're not sure about the direct access. If it were a matter of, less than 100 tons, I wouldn't care, but this is really a pretty big chunk. And it really, if that was never there in the first place, we've really overstated what we've managed to do. And I think that, that we shouldn't be claiming more than we've actually done. That's not the way to, it's not the way to stabilize the climate. It may make us look good, but it doesn't actually do anything. So I would like to see some notation on this wherever it is going to be published, mentioning that because it is really quite a big jump.
I agree with Glenn on that. It's good to footnote it.
As I said that we would, so
okay.
Duly noted.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian.
So the next thing I was going to call out, and this is one that we've inquired about, was in the solid waste landfill category, we saw a big jump from 2015 to 2016, which then dropped right back down in 2017, and was very curious. And this is point source data from the Air District, from their sources directly. So we've asked the county staff if they could follow up with the Air District to see if there is any insight into why there would be a sudden jump in 1 year that would reverse course the very next year. So,
Adrian, I'm sorry, I don't understand why the Air District isn't this solid waste. Am I missing? What am I missing?
This is point source emissions from a particular landfill. So
okay.
Above here, solid waste disposal, landfill waste, that is our garbage going to Fox Mountain.
Okay.
Solid waste landfill is the actual landfill in town.
The emissions. Okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, that is, because it's very woofy. Look, it goes up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Up and down.
Yeah.
Up and down.
It's I thought it was very startling to me when I looked, I got the two files from the county and I opened 2016 first and went, whoa, what's going on with that? And then opened the next one and saw it drop back down and was like, I don't know if this should be alarming or if there's a data error somewhere or if this is just some level of natural variability in the way landfill emissions.
Actually, how do they measure that? Do you know?
I don't actually know.
So I wonder if moving all that dirt around had anything to do with it.
It's entirely possible.
Okay.
I don't know, and I believe for some of the point source, and I'm not sure if this is the case for this one, some of it is self-reported by the facility, and then I think some of it is Air District monitors, so I'm not sure which is the case for this.
Yeah, and also we don't know whether the source, what percentage of source is coming from Sierra Point versus the Baylands. Do we?
So did I understand correctly?
I don't know. I listed as SunQuest properties, if that tells you anything, but I don't.
That would be the Baylands. Mary?
I was just wondering, did I understand correctly that we don't have the actual data behind these numbers and that we won't get that data until next year?
No, we had there. This is the summary spreadsheet in a file that I received that has like basically every single one of these rows is at least one additional worksheet or one additional sheet in that worksheet. So we have some of the data. Some of it is calculated, and we can really see pretty specifically inside the spreadsheet we receive. Some of it is, we got this report from the Air District, this is what they reported, added up. So, in the case of solid waste landfills, it's really this site reported this number, and that's what it adds up to for this year.
Okay.
Yeah, Glenn.
I was just going to say that should be pretty measurable. Point sources basically are considered to be pipelines. And so you just put some kind of monitor in there and it will measure what comes out of the pipe. I guess the gas is just emitted. It's not flared. Is that right?
As far as I know.
Okay. Probably should be flared, actually, if that would bring the emissions down somewhat. So we might want to look into that at some point. But that should be pretty measurable. I think this number we can probably trust more than some of the others.
Probably true.
Like the transportation emissions. And I was going to ask you, do you know how they calculate those, the transportation emissions?
As far as their methodology, I know that they are using now the origin destination methodology. We actually had them retroactively revise all of our prior emissions inventories when I started with the city, because we, I think, had assumed that they were done that way, but it turned out they were actually using the in-boundary method, and we were capturing all of 101. So, you know, there is a lot more data in that spreadsheet to that effect of where they're getting their estimates of VMT from. Off the top of my head, I probably can't go into a real detailed explanation, but we could talk through it maybe at the CAP subcommittee meeting if you wanted at some point in time. You're still muted.
Sorry, I do think these numbers look more realistic than the old set of numbers, and so I'm glad they're using the vehicle miles traveled or destination, what is it, origin destination.
Origin destination, yeah.
They were doing before when we got those hugely high numbers because we were getting assigned a share of the emissions from the section of 101 within Brisbane city limits, and that just knocked our emissions out of the park. But
I think they were like more than double what these totals are.
Yeah, so that looks better, but I'm still curious, you know, since as far as I know, they haven't been coming around and looking at the speedometer in my car. How do they, you know, or anybody else's, how are they figuring that out? So I'd kind of like to know. I'm just kind of curious.
Sure. I mean, we can dive into the methodology. They're following the standard ICLEI methodology, you know, for protocols based on, you know, national and international standards. So what exactly numbers they use as far as fuel mile average and all of that, I don't know off the top of my head, but we can definitely dig into it. Karen.
Couple things. I know that the data is available to agencies and consultants related to the phone and your location and moving around. So those are used in traffic studies nowadays. And then on the landfill stuff, I would say maybe that's a note for us to look into a little bit more on how they get that data, because I was told that the gases on the landfill are flared. So I'm not, I mean, we can look
into
those.
And that could just be my mistake on that particular location.
How that's calculated, we can get back to the CAP subcommittee with that.
I know they used to be flared, but they also said there wasn't enough gas. At one point, they said there wasn't enough gas anymore to flare it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's at now, honestly.
Yeah, I remember hearing that once before. So, yeah, if you could let us know, that would be great.
Okay. I think that was the end of the kind of calling out specific numbers, and I'll go into, I have a couple more ways to view this that I'll go into after Barbara's question.
Yeah, I was just curious what solid waste ADC is.
ADC is alternative daily cover. So it's basically, once they put the waste, they cover it at the end of the day at the landfill. So there's some apportionment of that to us. It is very interesting that it seems to have been quite high back in the 2010 to 13 range, and now is much lower. So I'm not sure if at some point in time perhaps there was a change in the way Cal Recycle estimated that, or if perhaps a change in practice at the landfill itself.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it was 3 in 2016 and jumped up to 14 in 2017. I mean, that's not that much in terms of other categories, but it was still sort of caught my attention. Like,
yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. Wasn't the last thing on this page. So the overall percent change, 2005 to 2017. Sorry about that. Hopefully you're not hearing my dog too loudly. a 20.3% reduction from 2005 to 2017. So this is just for the 2017 inventory to look at it by sector as far as a proportion of our emissions. You can see that basically transportation is now over 60%, 61% of our total emissions, with the vast majority of that coming from vehicle miles traveled or those on-road emissions, just smaller amounts for rail, and then off-road equipment is going to be more like your lawnmowers and leaf blowers and those kind of things. So, really teeny tiny portions from water, wastewater, and stationary sources, and then 10% solid waste, residential energy 8%, and commercial industrial direct access 21%. Really, mostly these portions of the pie over here are shrinking, and the transportation is growing, although if you notice on the last slide, the numbers haven't grown all that substantially. It's just they're becoming a bigger piece of the pie. Glenn?
I was just wondering, and this is really a gnarly question, we don't need to spend much time on it, but is anybody trying to calculate air travel emissions? Because those aren't included in any of these totals, so transportation is probably is more in absolute terms and also probably in relative terms if you include air travel. And I noticed they put rail in here, so they have some kind of methodology for calculating that and assigning that. And I was just wondering, is anybody talking about flying?
So I'm gonna touch on the rail first because it's pretty straightforward. The rail is actually rail that is inside your jurisdiction. So basically, Caltrain has a segment inside, and they look at Caltrain's total emissions, the length of the miles of track, and divide that up by how many miles of track you have in your jurisdiction. So that's fairly straightforward, probably quite accurate as far as measurements. As far as air travel is generally considered Scope 3 emission, which is not included in local emissions inventories unless you have an airport in your jurisdiction, in which case I think you would be probably looking at that differently and may have some emissions included from an airport, but generally if you don't have an airport in your jurisdiction, you're not going to have air travel like for the residents of your community included in a standard emissions inventory. I was going to go into this later, but I might as well mention now, since you're asking the question, the updated climate action plan template that the county is just completing is actually starting to attempt to incorporate consumption-based emissions. So looking at air travel for residents and things that we're purchasing, our food, clothing, etc. So it will not necessarily show up in these kind of inventories because it is all very much an estimate, and there is overlap between a consumption-based inventory and a traditional, if you will, inventory like we're seeing here. So we will continue to track our inventory this way. We will just have kind of supplementary estimates that are looking at consumption-based emissions, including air travel, and we may have measures to try to reduce those categories as well, but they would still not necessarily show up in this type of inventory.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I did want to note, in case you hadn't noticed, that Meg has joined us. Hi, Meg. You are, here, let me unmute you. I think I have to do it the first time. Meg, we're not hearing you, or at least I'm not hearing you.
Did you unmute her?
I did. She's not showing up as muted here. Let me see. Not sure why, just got a new camera.
You can always call in by phone.
Yeah, if you have to call in information, Megan, you want to call in by phone. While you do that, I'll go ahead and continue to the, okay, we'll do. Continue to the last slide on the emissions inventory. So this is just kind of showing our historical from 2005 to date, and then what our 2020 goal was, which we are already below. And then we have not, as a city, officially set 2030 and 2045 or beyond goals because we don't have climate action plans or haven't otherwise set them. But assuming that we as a city had goals that aligned with higher level goals at the state and county, these are, what that might look like to try to reach carbon neutrality by 2045. So we're looking good for now, but obviously we still have a very long way to go and a very steep trajectory to get there. So, any questions on that?
Well, I'm sure 2020 is going to help.
It will be very interesting to see what this looks like, but unfortunately it'll be a few years before we know. Yeah, Glenn.
Unfortunately, 2020 is not going to help all that much. Emissions went down in the United States about 17% over March and April. For the year, the projections I've seen are that emissions will go down by about 4 to 5%. Just to put that in some context, if we're going to stay below 2 degrees, it looks like we've already blown through 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is the target that was recommended at Paris. But if we're going to stay below 2 degrees, we need to reduce emissions by about 7.5% per year, every year, until then. So what the impact of COVID-19 is helpful, and it will, that and the subsequent recession will reduce emissions quite a lot, but it's not as helpful as we would hope. Yeah. And what that does is show how deeply emissions are embedded in our whole economy. In international trade, for example, for the stuff that we eat and consume and things like that. So I was really horrified to read that because I thought, wow, COVID, the silver lining to COVID is going to be we have big emissions reductions this year, but they're not going to be as big as I, and I'm sure a lot of other people were hoping.
Yeah, as I was thinking about that, I'm thinking about the number of delivery trucks that come up and down our street every day, which is huge. I mean, at least 8, 10 times a day.
So I had seen very similar to what you mentioned, Glenn, as kind of as far as the 17% on the international level. But I recall seeing estimates for the year overall that were actually more in line with what we need to be hitting in the 7 or 8%. So not sure, maybe that has been a while since I saw that report. Maybe they're changing it, updating as we go and seeing it even shrinking further and further. But yeah, I think it kind of puts some really interesting context on it if you think we're not even getting to the annual level we need with this much disruption. It's pretty alarming.
One of the bright spots is, sort of a paradigm shift about working from home and the ability of people to be able to work from home. And hopefully that will have a lasting impact that is positive for us.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
There will be definitely some big shifts in that regard.
Yeah.
So I think Hopefully that was Meg that I admitted into the room. Meg, can we hear you now?
I don't know if I'm going to come over twice because I just switched my speakers, so I think I am.
You sound good.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Fine. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm gonna, Anyway, hi. Sorry I was late, you guys. I knew you probably heard what happened, and I guess it's good we found out that I'm not supposed to be on the committee anymore.
Are you going to reapply, hon?
Well, I think we'll just kind of wait and see what happens. I mean, I don't know if catering's going to come back. I mean, who would have thunk I sent this out in February and catering dies on, my last event was March 6th. So, but I guess I can turn around and reapply. I think I'll look into it and see what that looks like and talk to Karen and Adrian a little bit. But yeah, I don't know what that looks like.
I think that they had taken applications for, I guess, your seat when you resigned, the one, and the
Right.
two of you had to reapply, two other members. So the council is not planning to meet in July and August as a regular council meeting, but I think they're going to talk about tomorrow night holding interviews and filling the seats. So
How many
people?
Yeah.
Say again?
Karen, how many people have applied for slots on open space and ecology?
I believe that 2 people beyond the 2 that applied to renew their spot. So I think 2 people from 1 open spot created by Meg. If I have that right. So I think they're going to interview. It might have to be next time you come back, Meg, but we hope that when the next opening you think about coming back if you're available.
Yeah.
So you're here tonight as a resident.
Huh?
You're here tonight as a resident participating in the meeting.
I'm here as a
Anybody's
resident.
watching and questioning us.
Definitely, So, well, I'm kind of glad we found out because, I'm not supposed to be, after that happened in February, I was not supposed to be on the committee. So, I didn't want to make any, big changes and then say that my vote doesn't count.
I didn't realize that. Glenn, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I reapplied, but I haven't been interviewed and I haven't been reappointed. So I guess that's still forthcoming.
Yeah, that's what I said. They're going to schedule the interviews. They had extended the application period after first deadline till, I don't remember, April or something?
They extended it for a month in April till April 15th, I believe.
So, and I guess the city attorney made a distinction between if your term ends and you say, I'm not going to renew, and you can stay until you're replaced. But if you're resigning mid-term, then they accept your resignation, then.
Right. Is that new, or is it just always been like that and we just didn't know?
Usually it's a circumstance where if someone resigns, they want to resign then, right
then. Yeah, COVID's not something that was happening.
Yeah.
I missed like 4 meetings and I was going to miss the next one, so.
Yeah.
That's when I just, didn't make sense.
Yeah, I noticed Ross isn't here yet. I'm wondering what his status is going to be.
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed the time, and I will give him a quick check, see if he's still able to join us.
Yeah. Is it time for staff updates?
It is time for staff updates. Karen, do you want to go ahead and start while I try to get a hold of Ross?
Sure. I just had a couple, and I guess they're a little bit different than committee. The Crocker Trail Master Plan, the council chose a consultant, I think last month, or approved the recommendation of the selection committee that Carl and Megan participated in. Carl and Mary participated in, I think, right?
Yeah, Carl and Mary.
And staff is holding a kickoff meeting with them on Monday, and they're going to try to get creative about doing outreach master plan. It's hard to do the regular outreach right now. And they've started collecting some of the background data, so we made sure to include Quarry Road as the committee had asked for, and they also got the little spur of the trail that goes out to the tunnel, so we're going to kind of walk the whole area and just talk about how to kick off the plan, the work. And you've probably seen around town, Safe Routes to School, the Green Infrastructure Project is starting, so that's 2 months. It's expected to be done in early August, and we're working through the little flips and glitches as they come up, having to do with meeting ADA grades and versus doing the best we can with getting in ramps and such kind of issues. Glenn, yeah.
Yeah. I was just wondering on the trail project, if it's going to include Quarry Road, could it possibly include a replacement of the sign on the entrance to Quarry Road? It really looks pretty awful. It's all curled. The water has been leaking into the little into the frame where the sign is. It's really kind of a mess. And so if it's not included, if it can't be included in the trail upgrade program, something maybe the committee needs to talk about at some point.
Can I suggest, Glenn, I know this is weird, but can you put in a go request for that and see if the city can't repair it and fix it up in the meanwhile?
It's really, I don't think it's really repairable. The sign itself is stained and curled, and unless we get a metal sign up there, which I think would be the best alternative rather than try to have something on paper inside a wooden frame, I just don't think the sign is going to last. But the last time I looked at it, it just looked pretty ragged, and my impression is it's not fixable.
Well, I was going to say the same thing if you put repair or replace and see what feedback that you get if somebody's creative or we have something else. So what the master plan is going to do is look at alternatives to improve the trail beyond the resurfacing. It's going to look at furnishings and artwork and lighting and,
native plants, perhaps?
Huh?
Native plants, perhaps?
Yeah, informational signs about the habitat and all those types of things, and kind of make recommendations about how to make it, more attractive, usable resource for the city. So it's also going to help staff find funding sources and grants to be able to do those improvements. So it's not going to actually, it's separate from the resurfacing that we got the federal money to do. It's a master plan to, look at it holistically and see what the city wants, what the residents want to do with it in the community. I guess it would be the business community too.
Can I comment on that? So I know Carl and I got invited to. I haven't received an email yet to meet with the consulting firm. I think it's RSS in June to start talking about what our vision is. And I can tell you, since the shelter in place, there are a lot of people walking Quarry Road, more so than Crocker Trail, based on what I've seen. And I've been taking like 4 to 5 walks per week, and I take Quarry Road. And there are a lot of folks utilizing that. So I think it deserves probably a little bit more attention than Crocker Trail, to be honest. In addition to the sign in front of Quarry Road, there's been a huge dump truck there that's been sitting there for the last couple of weeks. I have no clue why, but it really, I don't know if you've seen it. It's just right on the, down from the post office, that entrance. There's a huge
flatbed.
Yeah, the flatbed, yeah. It's still there. I was down there this morning walking. I'm like, this truck is still here. I have no clue why. So that, I don't know.
I guess maybe I'll raise my hand first.
Yeah. Anyway. Go ahead, Carl.
I guess that's a really good comment, Mary. Well, with my young daughters also, like I walk Core Road, I live close to it, and I also see it's been visibly heavier traffic.
Yeah.
So there might be some near-term things, assuming this situation is going to be more, pervasive for a little while more. Maybe there's something we can do to help at least that portion. The Crocker Trail, I think that's a bigger project. If that was, good as a resident standpoint, that I'm sure that would be popular too. In this current kind of situation where people are cramped up at home and wanting to take a break. Like myself, walking the kids. So, but there are. I think this overall thing is kind of a bigger project, and it's kind of a step-by-step thing. Near-term things like a sign. Actually, I didn't even notice the thing Glenn mentioned. Maybe it's too broken that I don't even notice it. Anyway, so those are my comments. But maybe some near-term things we can possibly think about to improve, considering the near-term needs. So
yeah.
I don't know what the rules are. People walking their dogs. First of all, no one, probably 90% of those folks don't have leashes with their dogs. Secondly, horses on Crocker Trail. So I've seen that happen, and they don't pick up what they leave behind. So I don't know how that's going to work with the revamp of Crocker Trail if horses will be allowed down that road, especially if it gets repaved. So. Pardon me?
I hope they're still allowed.
Yeah, I don't know.
Horses or horses? Yeah, horses.
Horses, yes, horses. I've seen them on Crocker Trail.
So I would say these are great topics, and that you guys serving on this master planning committee are, one, you're the voice of the rest of OSEC, and two, you're the voice of the community. So what I'm taking from that is Quarry Road, are people using it just because it's closer? Like if you have little children, that makes a lot of sense. You're not going to take them on a 2-mile hike, far from your home, relatively far if you have small children. But are there other reasons? Does Crocker not feel as safe when you get to the far back of it? I've heard that anecdotally from a couple of people, women, like, I don't want to walk the whole thing by myself, even if it is daytime. So those would be things that we would think about in the master plan, and how do we make that better so it's accessible,
Yeah.
I think the other thing is the the Guadalupe Trail. We call it the Guadalupe Trail. I hate calling it the Crocker Trail. The Guadalupe Trail, in some places, goes through buildings, or there's, it's like it's an industrial park. And until we make it look more like a natural habitat and daylight some of the creeks and make it more connected to the mountain, I think people are going to still prefer Quarry Road, because when you go down Quarry Road, you get these incredible vistas of Buckeye and Owl Canyons. It smells different. It just feels different because it is much closer to the mountain. So, and also it's closer to the elementary school, the Littman School, and to the community, so to the central Brisbane community part. I think those are some of the things that may influence people. And once you start on the Crocker Loop, it is a long loop.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Glenn? I just want to say I totally agree with that. I'm about equidistant from both of them, so I could easily walk on the Crocker Trail, and I never do. Quarry Road is just a much more attractive and potentially even more attractive walk.
Yeah.
And I say potentially if we got rid of some more of the ivy that's strangling the trees and replanted the trees with replanted indigenous trees, and then you get the views of the mountain. I just think Quarry Road is a much more attractive feature than Crocker Park is, and I would like to see it get a little more love. So that's just a vote, as it were.
I agree with that.
Okay. We'll push for that.
And my last update was that we have on the council agenda tomorrow night to join the county weed management area. So we had kind of put that together earlier in the year before we all went to shelter in place. And the county's MOU was only going to be good through the end of 2020. So we didn't want to adopt and then need to readopt and have that be confusing. So we waited, and the county's updated the MOU for 10 more years. And that'll allow us to work together with the rest of the county and all the participants to go after regional funding that's particularly set aside for invasive. So
I'm just so glad about that. And Bob, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your work and your attention on the weed management group and participating, and how charming you are, which makes them all just adore you. So I'm just really happy about that. You know, you're a good contributor there, and I just am really glad. I'm so happy. I just think it's a really good thing.
That could have been Bob's update. He played a big role in getting that.
Yeah, he really, really did. And also, Carl and Mary, I'm really glad with the work that you're doing on the subcommittee for the Guadalupe Trail and Quarry Road.
Quarry Road.
And then, Karen, I did have a quick question about this flatbed truck. I mean, should we contact Brisbane PD? I mean, what the hell? That's not public parking for days on end for a commercial vehicle like that.
Yeah, since I'm not in town, I haven't seen it or anything, and it's not connected to any construction that's going on, right? Or it would be moving, I would think.
I don't know.
It's just in the same place and not being loaded, unloaded. It's not city marked, right?
Mary, Carl?
No, it's am I on mute? It's not city. I don't think it's a city truck. It's been sitting there for quite a while, and I haven't seen anything on it. So, although today just the flatbed was there and not the truck. So
you're saying it's like a semi with you can take the piece off. Yeah, that might be someone using it for parking. So
yeah, it's just the trailer part. And I walk it once a day, maybe averaging 1.5 times a day right now. So I've seen the same thing. It's just for a person with a stroller, it's kind of a pain to kind of maneuver around it.
So contact the police.
Yeah, can you both put in a go request on that?
Yeah, I can just submit. I think I've got that. Oh, is it not appropriate to put it as a go request?
I don't know if is there a police. I'm sorry, there are a couple of police categories of the go request. I think there are.
Yeah.
I think I've got the app, so I can punch it in. So I'll take action on that.
Thank you, Carl. Okay. Any more staff updates, Adrian?
I do have some, but before I do, I just saw a person pop into our waiting room for the meeting, and the only name is Red. So I'm curious. Never mind. That must be Ross.
Oh.
He just texted me as well. So it was a good thing. I was about to say, who is Red? We're not letting in this scammer.
I don't want any of these trolls coming into our meeting.
Hey, sorry. Well, just this one troll.
Hi, Ross. Thought you could join us.
Hey, sorry. It's just been a stupid day.
It happens.
Okay. So, Adrian, do you want to go on to staff updates?
Yes. So I have a few. I will start with the good and interesting news first. You probably will remember that last year we got the Platinum Beacon Award, the full Beacon Award, which is the most that we are eligible for. But PG&E continued to send the Beacon team updated data, and we had another project this year. So they sent me an email letting me know that our agency energy category has now seen 36% reduction. That was a lighting upgrade project that we did in City Hall last year that we financed with on-bill financing. So we've continued to reduce in that category beyond, necessary to get that platinum award. And I also noted that we were the first city in the state to be maxed out on Beacon Awards.
Can you state that? I lost the audio there for a second. It sounds like something windy is happening.
Oh, sorry, that's me. I need to mute. I'm on board the Jeremiah Brown.
I don't know how I'm mute.
Signal is on deck.
So the Beacon Awards, basically we are the first city in the state to have maxed out on Beacon Awards, have platinum in every category, and there are no more awards from the Beacon team to be had, but they commended our continued agency energy reductions anyhow. So I thought that was pretty exciting and noteworthy. So hopefully you all saw that we were able to move forward with a compost giveaway this spring last month, and Scavengers was able to bring us 20 yards this year, so that was double what we had last year. I haven't been in town in a long time either, so I don't actually know if it's been fully depleted. I rather assume that it has based on some of the early comments that I heard, but it sounds like that was pretty popular again this year, and we were very glad that Scavengers was able to continue to work with us to make that available.
Due to COVID-19, I was actually in town this time. I'm always gone. So I actually got some compost, and it was lovely, and I think 20 cubic yards is probably a good quantity for this community because it lasted a decent amount of time, but it's definitely all gone.
Excellent. Thank you for noting that. That's very helpful. So let's see, what else? I think I mentioned when we were talking about the emissions inventories, the climate action template from the county is virtually complete. They have the text version finished and are expecting by the end of the month to have a more graphical template version available for us. So I don't know that we'll be moving forward with making significant updates and changes for a CAP update in town, but once I have that fully completed template, I will go ahead and forward that to the Climate Action Plan Subcommittee, and I think generally it looks similar in many ways to our 2015 Climate Action Plan, but then there are some obviously updates as far as policies and projections and a number of new measures that we have available, especially in terms of electrification. And then also we have, as I mentioned earlier, the consumption-based inventories incorporated now. Adaptation is still incorporated just as an appendix, but it's a little bit more robust these days than it had been in the past.
That's good.
As far as the building efficiency program, things have been continuing apace with regard to that. We already were having Zoom meetings with our consulting team in Southern California before COVID, so it didn't really change the game that much for that program. We have completed the benchmarking of all of our city facilities, besides for one little weird data thing related to our solar panels at City Hall. It's giving me an error because it says we shouldn't have negative energy usage, and yes, we should because we have solar. So besides for that little piece, our city buildings have been benchmarked. We've coordinated with the EPA and are expecting to have our voluntary pilot reporting link ready by the end, about the end of the month. And the subcontractor who is working on the technology is hard at work to get everything ready for us to hopefully launch a voluntary compliance pilot in July. So
very nice.
I think that's kind of the highlights there. We did have plans to have a bunch of education and outreach kind of efforts this summer, and we are now talking through whether or how we can maybe shift those to either late in this year or even early next to potentially have them be more aligned with our actual compliance deadline next spring, since we can't make the best use of all of that education and outreach budget that we had in that original contract at this time under these shutdown conditions. So we're working through kind of looking at how we can maybe repurpose some of those efforts and resources. And then kind of related to that, there was a Bayren Regional Forum last week that I spoke at on a panel. They were covering benchmarking programs, had some folks from the state and then folks from San Francisco and Berkeley and myself on a panel talking about local benchmarking programs. So good visibility for that. I think there were 80 or 90 or so people from primarily from around the Bay Area on that webinar last week. And another, I think I had mentioned, might have been our last meeting in February, we had gotten a paper and presentation slot at the ACEEE conference in August. That conference is no longer happening in person, and there are a lot fewer presentation slots available, so we are waiting to find out if we are going to get one of those presentation slots, or we may actually have an opportunity to pre-record a presentation and just have that included with our paper and the resources there. So I think that's now going to be a virtual conference that they are still having at roughly the same time in mid-August, just different format. So let's see. Couple other things that I need my notes for. So you may already be aware of this because I think this was on my staff updates list for many months while we didn't meet. The Community Development Department has published a web page listing tree removal and trimming permits and notifications. Removal of street trees or trees in the public right-of-way are not included on that list since they do not fall under CBD ordinance, but Public Works does place a notification on the tree about a week in advance of removal. So I am just going to, for the benefit of everyone here, hopefully I can find my right controls. I've got a lot of things going here. I was hoping I was going to be able to chat you this link. Here we go, chat to everyone in the meeting. So that is the link that you can find the notices on that page. And then lastly, back in February, we sent letters to nurseries about invasive species, sale of invasive species. And so we actually got a response back from the Yerba Buena nursery, who those of you who are familiar might know that they are a native plant nursery. And so they sent us a letter about coordinating efforts to reduce native plants from being introduced and to promote nurseries to commit to not selling invasives. And so they were happy to hand out our brochure and also link to OSEC's information from our website. We mailed them a bunch more of our invasive plants brochures. And they also suggested that we publish a list of nurseries who commit to not selling invasive plants and offer alternative native plants. And so we as staff thought that this was probably an issue for the invasive species subcommittee to consider, whether we wanted to be looking at doing something like that and how we would, ensure that nurseries that we listed, if we were going to do that, were in fact living up to the standards we would want. So I think that was pretty much the gist of it. Basically is just to refer that to the subcommittee and see how the group might like to respond. But it was nice to hear from somebody, know that those letters were actually being received. So I think that was everything on my list. Are there any questions on any of that? Sorry, I wasn't looking up to see if anybody was raising their hand as I was looking at my notes.
No. Did Bob have any staff updates? Did Bob have any staff updates?
I will let him answer that.
Adrian, did you have the pictures I sent?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Ta-da!
Ah!
So I drove by the other day and slammed on the brakes because I noticed that Thomas R. Polito responded to our letter we sent a few months back. And they took out the pampas grass.
Excellent.
That is great. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Everyone that goes away
could stage that photo because right underneath the red circle was a graduation going on, and like everyone was in line, and it was a drive-through graduation, so I had to poach it real quick, shoot over everyone's head to get the shot I needed.
Good. Excellent. Okay.
Was that it, Bob?
Glenn? You're on mute.
On my end, everything else is on hold for now. We're kind of in a wait and see until things are back to normal.
You had a little bit on Clippy Hill.
What's up on Clippy Hill?
I talked to Ken yesterday, and a few weeks ago, the planning department, Ken, and I don't know if John or anybody else was involved, but talked to the county regarding getting the ball rolling again of that transfer of ownership, and then the county said that they needed to work on a plan of what they would consider managed habitat to accept it, or a cost to manage the invasives that have grown up since the deal was first talked about. And Ken hadn't heard anything since quarantine, so he reached out last week to the county to see where they were in that process, but haven't heard back. So he was proactively working on it before we checked in with him. So he assured me that they're kind of want to get that going, and they're hoping this quarantine. Anyway, he was going to follow up, but he hadn't. He told me he'd keep me in the loop if there's any more progress. So he knows that we're interested, and he'll promise to keep me informed.
Yeah, Toll Brothers is supposed to remediate that, correct?
Yeah, but the county said that they are working on a remediation plan or cost of what they would count as remediation.
Okay.
Either a scope of work or a cost for the county to be satisfied.
All right. Thank you for staying on top of that, Bob. It is really important. It has been years, and this should be in the public domain now. And
yeah.
It's not.
The thing is, the county just got the funds for the Forest McKesson parcels that they're using for remediation, so I feel like Hannah has got some experience now with that, where I don't know, between Toll Brothers having a change in staff and the county having a change in staff, it seems like the ball is moving in the right direction now.
It needs to be. It needs to get done. It's really a violation of the public trust not to get it done.
Yeah, well, everyone seems involved, so I'll report back if we get any more updates.
Okay. Thank you, Bob, and please stay on them. Really.
Yes.
Okay.
Will do.
Thank you very much.
Glenn, did you have a question?
No, but I did want to thank you for checking out the pampas grass removal. This pampas grass was in one of the school yards at the foot of San Bruno Mountain on the other side, on the west. And Adrian and I went up and down Guadalupe Canyon Road and spotted a lot of pampas grass. And the reason we asked for this particular spectacular example to be removed is that, you know, the wind tends to blow, when it blows from the west, it blows uphill. So we think that's part of the reason why there's been this terrible pampas grass outbreak on the mountain, and I'm really hoping this will help. So thanks, Bob, for following up. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Small win,
Okay.
you got one.
So should we go on to subcommittee reports now? Adrian? Okay. So the first subcommittee report is open space. Needless to say, we have not done anything yet because of the whole not being able to get together. So I would like us to kind of hopefully schedule maybe a Zoom meeting or a meeting where we can sit, you know, appropriate distance apart outdoors. How do we go about that, Adrian?
I think that's one of mine, so I can set
Karen.
something up.
Okay.
Ask Barbara and, sorry, I'm reading the wrong line. Carl, Mary, and Michelle. You prefer to meet socially distanced outdoors? I mean, I guess 4 people, yeah, we can do that. Or try a Zoom meeting.
I'm good for either. Carl, Mary?
Yeah, likewise.
I think I'm okay if we want to meet outdoors, but I think it might be better with Zoom.
Okay.
Just so we can get scheduled and we have a set time and we just meet at a certain time online. So.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, climate action plan.
Our last meeting was, oh, no, it wasn't canceled. I worked right through it, so I'm going to let Glenn.
We did meet. Mostly we got an update on the building benchmarking ordinance. And Adrian, refresh my memory. I think that's mostly what we did at that last meeting was receive an update on that. And it seems to be going along pretty well. Adrian, if there's anything you want to add, go for it.
No, I think the other thing we talked about was the emissions inventories that we talked about here tonight. So that was pretty much the two main topics for that group.
Yeah.
I don't have any burning agenda items for that subcommittee, but I would float the option if folks would like to have a meeting in the remainder of June or July. I can set something up if you feel that's needed, or there are any agenda topics for that subcommittee.
Well, I mean, at some point we need to discuss how we're going to get to that 7% annual. But I don't know that I have any, lightning has not struck me in the last 10 minutes, so maybe we could circle back around, check in via email next week or something and just see if we can kind of train our brains on it.
Sure. One option, if we'd like, might be once I have the updated cap template, if we wanted to talk about that at all.
Sure.
Besides for that, I don't have anything burning. So once I have that, maybe I'll circulate and see if folks would like to get together over Zoom to talk about it.
Okay, next is events, and I would just like to tell you that I had a Habitat Restoration Day by myself with one other person on the day we were supposed to go do it. Lori Graham and I got a couple of weed wrenches from Mountain Watch, and we properly distanced and wore our masks and went up in the area that we were supposed to do above Trinity Road and pulled a bunch of broom together, or actually pulled a bunch of broom separately. So that was our big event. Are we having a day in the park this year? I seriously doubt we are. Or do we know yet?
No official determination has yet been made, is my understanding. They are wait and see mode at this point in time, but I'm personally not optimistic that large gatherings are going to be allowed at that point in time, but I think they'll wait and see.
So there was an event, I had an idea for what I had hoped we were going to do for that, which I was going to present at the March meeting, which we never got to do. But I wanted to have a recycled art contest. I know it sounds weird, arts and crafts. And more than 50% of the materials that you used for it needed to be used materials or recycled materials. And it was just this idea I had where, like at Day in the Park, we would actually have an art show. And people could participate and make things. Like one of the things that made me think about this was one day we were in a meeting and Barbara was making a rag rug sitting in the meeting. And then I saw this incredible recycled earrings made out of soda cans when I was in Hawaii, and I bought some, and they like a lot of soda cans have really beautiful pictures on them, and they kind of use that in these earrings. And I started really thinking about all the different talented people in Brisbane, and currently they have a lot of time on their hands, or many of them do. And I just thought, well, is this something that we can still do as a virtual kind of an event, and then, maybe have a display where people could, file by and look at all the artwork that people do? And it was just an idea for Day in the Park, but I think we could still do it and have it as a kind of a socially distanced art show or something. I don't know. Is there any appetite for that? Guess not. Nobody's saying so. Glenn?
I think it's a great idea, but I think that we should do it as a real in-person event, maybe as a fair even. But I think, it takes quite a while to think about stuff and make stuff. So I think we should start publicizing it, pick a date.
Yeah, we'd have to start pretty soon, if we want to do this.
And start publicizing it like now, for maybe next spring even.
Okay. I like that idea. Barbara?
Yeah, I was just going to say something similar to what Glenn just said, and that is we recently got the word that the Dickens Christmas Fair is postponing for this year. There is not going to be any Dickens Christmas Fair. But they are trying to get together some virtual representation of the fair to kind of keep people engaged, keep their customer/patron base, like I said, engaged. And I think that if we could circle back with City Council or Park and Rec, I think now's a good time. I'm agree with you. I don't think that we're going to be having Day in the Park. But I think it's a good time for the City Council to make that determination, let the public know, and then start thinking about, okay, what can we do? What do we want to do? As opposed to just going like, oh, nothing, because I think people do need something right now.
And I think it'd be a nice way to engage the public and make them very aware of the kinds of things you can do with your recycled material. I've been keeping a little photo file on my laptop of different ideas that I've seen people do. And I just think it'd be kind of cool. And even if we didn't get to physically do it, we could have an online display of artwork that people submit for the contest, for like a contest and an art show. So, Karen, Adrian, how do we proceed with this under our current circumstances?
Very good question. I'm going to let Karen take that one.
Why? Because you're going to be gone for 3 months? Yeah, I'm thinking of things that the Park and Rec staff, I'm not sure, I think the commission didn't meet for a couple months either, so I'm not sure if they played a role, but they did some of the, they did art contests for kids, the Smile Brisbane kind of struggled to get participation right in the beginning of shelter in place, but I think everybody was, you know, scrambling with their teaching at home and childcare and everything. So maybe the first thing would be to kind of check in with them, because we don't typically do those types of events, and see if they have some guidance. And then, I don't know, I mean, I think we can
It's
do something. So this is an event subcommittee thing.
Yeah, and it would be for adults and kids. But,
and kids. You don't want to exclude kids, right?
No, I don't want to exclude kids, but I really want to encourage adults to participate, like a, you know, like an art show, and have. I mean, I'm talking about a whole, you know, series of people doing different mediums and everything. So anyway, so can we get a subcommittee together to talk about that? That's an idea. I don't know if it comes under events or not.
I think so.
Okay. So, do you want it under events, or do you want it as a separate issue?
I think go ahead and keep it under events, and perhaps I can see if we can see if somebody from Park and Rec could join us to discuss. They would have good input and maybe be able to help coordinate with us. So
yeah,
we can go about it that way.
And Mary and Carl, are you enthused about this idea?
Yeah, actually, I think it's a great idea. It would be kind of nice if we were able to do it later this year, but I doubt it. So springtime.
Well, I'd kind of like to get
online?
it kicked off and going and online, so that now, while people are still some of them sheltering in place, or you know, are not involved in their, they've got time to think about stuff and do stuff, and it might be a really good time to engage people throughout the summer to start working on their projects. I mean, some of them are going to take a while. Quilts made out of you know, scrap fabric, you know, rag rugs, you know, jewelry, collect the cans. I have a whole bag of cans I've been collecting because I keep thinking I'm going to do this, you know, and mosaics out of, you know, whatever, rocks you find in pieces of garbage or something.
Yeah, I'm on board. Yeah.
Okay. So we just really need to, and Barbara, I'd love it if you submitted a list of different things that you can think of that people might do, because you are kind of the you know, Jedi master at this kind of stuff.
Sure.
So.
Give it a shot.
Okay. So next is education and outreach.
Actually, before we move on, one thing I will note, back in April when we were doing the Earth Month promotion, and we were coordinating with some Park and Rec staff, we did, they did set up our Park and Rec department actually has a Pinterest page, and they set up a board for, it was not exclusively recycled art projects, but there were a number of them on there as part of kind of environmental projects that people could do. A lot of them were very kid-focused, but there were a few options there. So we may be able to kind of pull some ideas from that, or maybe...
Can you share that link? I don't think I ever stumbled across that.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Go check out the Park and Rec Department Pinterest page.
Okay.
I didn't know they had a Pinterest page.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Or if you go search the city website for the Earth Month campaign, I'm pretty sure it's one of the links in there.
Okay.
It's been a couple of months now since I've looked at it, and I don't have it pulled up, but it should be there.
All right. Thank you. Next is education and outreach. Mary and Glenn?
We haven't done anything. I guess the question I have for staff is, when do you think the library will open, and when should we get in front of Tamika, who manages that?
I don't know that we have an update that we're pulled off for COVID, so I think if anything, they're just getting geared back up, unfortunately.
Is there an ETA? I mean, do we think it's going to open this year?
We didn't even think to ask. We thought about some things that you guys would be interested in.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Connect with that one.
Okay.
So no updates. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Update at this time, but we'll.
Yeah, at this time. Yeah.
Mary, you can ask tomorrow at the council meeting during oral communication.
Yeah.
It's kind of a joke because originally Madison thought her name was going to be on the plaque because she was mayor. And then, no, it's going to be Terry. And now they're thinking, no, it's not going to be Terry if they don't finish this library in time. It's kind of a joke. Like, whose name's going to be on the plaque? Anyway. Okay. Invasive species ordinance. That's Barbara and I. And I liked the list of nurseries things. And we really haven't gotten together and talked about this, but we should, of how to proceed. I think it's really timely. So maybe we could meet with Bob and start working on that. And, you know, I know Barbara's got tons of spare time. And I'm still working full time. But it is kind of important that we proceed with that. I just think we need to do it.
You know, I mean, everybody's gone garden crazy with the shelter in place. So I mean, I'm busy tomorrow, but I could potentially squeeze out. And Friday's an early day for City Hall, so that's not fair. So I could do as soon as Monday. I mean, I don't see why we shouldn't just take the bit in our teeth and run with it.
Yeah, I was kind of a little bit horrified because I watched the last Park and Rec Commission meeting where they presented a version of the mural that's going to be on the skate park, and they had these, two beautiful lupin plants, and then they had periwinkle flowers, and periwinkle is extremely invasive, and I'm like, no! I'm sitting at home watching, going, no periwinkle on this.
Well, you told them they need to change that.
Well, they didn't pass yet. I think they're going to take it back to the drawing board, but I will definitely mention that you really don't want Vinca minor and Vinca major representations on the mural of plants, since they are pretty invasive. Good ground cover. It covers all the ground. Forever and ever.
I know. That's the nice thing about invasive species. You just plant one and you're done.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to get together Monday?
This is true.
Monday's good, yeah. Bob, it's up to Bob. Bob, what's good with you?
Yeah, I'll send you guys an invite, or let me see. I don't know what my schedule, let me pull that up. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, well, you can do that offline and just let us know, and we'll be accommodating. Next comes the Dark Skies Ordinance. Hey, Barbara, why don't you give a report of what we did after our last meeting? Do you even remember?
Oh, yeah. It took me a second. I was really reaching back into that.
It was a deep, dark.
It's been a while.
And then I went to elementary school. So we went with the guy from UPC, which is no longer UPC, which is now...
Whatever. You and I, we didn't go with him. We went by ourselves, you, me, and Mary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking he was in the car, too. But, yeah, you and me and Mary, we went and looked at the fixtures in question over the Google parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And their permit required them to have downward-facing fixtures. The fixtures were at about, I'd say, a 45-degree angle.
Plus, they were still on late at night and really bright.
Yes.
But,
so, I mean, that to me is not a down-facing fixture. It's sort of so, we talked to them about it. They said they're going to address it. Personally, I have not been out there again.
I have.
Have you? Okay, tell us.
Yes.
Have they fixed it?
Well, there's nothing there. There's no Google buses. The lot's closed for right now. They've got their lights still there, but they're all hunkered down. The real egregious Under that night when we went out there, though, was the amount of new lighting that is intensely bright and shining all over the place from both Sierra Point Lumber and the paratransit lot and Ecology. So
yeah, it's Ecology is the big one.
Actually, that night, the big one was Sierra Point Lumber.
Golden State now.
Golden State
Oh,
Lumber.
that's interesting. So they upgraded.
They way upgraded.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but that wasn't part of their development agreement, so we have to approach that a little bit differently, but we do need to approach that.
And then there's been a tremendous amount of still ongoing light pollution from Crocker Industrial Park. There is a ton of light now from the new bioscience buildings out at the marina, on Sierra Point Marina. And I haven't noticed the Mission Blue Field lately because I'm not over there as much in the evenings. But we do need to have a really firm, good ordinance and that we can put forward. And I'm not quite sure how we can move this forward faster than where we're at right now.
Yeah, no, we have a really good start. We have a first draft. Blame me since I'm the lead on that one. I haven't waved it back underneath everybody's nose, trying to get everybody to kind of start thinking about it, working on it, and I should do that. Okay, so let's schedule that for the following week, and let's get together and do it.
I thought I saw something on the board by the library. I don't know what committee it was. It may have been the planning committee or council about the Sierra Point lighting.
It could be.
Yeah, so I think that's on someone's agenda for sure.
So we need to coordinate with that. Karen, can you help us do that?
I don't know what you saw. When did you see it? When the Planning Commission might approve certain parts of the development.
Yeah, you know what?
Relative to existing ordinances,
Okay.
So there might, Meg just texted me and said that there might, Portola Valley may have a really good dark ordinance that we can reference to help us craft ours.
Sure, I'll read it.
Okay.
I'll add it to it.
And I think didn't we have another one or two that we had looked at?
There were a couple. I don't remember what all we looked at.
Okay. I just think that we really need to...
Midtown Star, that's pretty bright.
Oh, my God. The Star? Their parking lot was really awful. Glenn?
Glenn's been waving her hand. Glenn, you can just jump in.
I was going to ask, is this going to apply to residential as well as commercial? Because
I believe so, yeah.
I'd like it.
Because there's a new bright 24-hour-a-day porch light pretty much once a week. I know that I've got one to the north of me now, and I'm seeing new ones pop up on the mountain all the time. Everybody's doing it. So
it would need to. It would absolutely need to be universal.
Well, I think we're going to need to have two portions of the ordinance, one for residential and one for business.
Yeah.
Because there's different standards and there's different needs. But, yeah, we need a comprehensive ordinance that has rules for businesses and then rules for residential.
Right.
Yeah.
The big thing right now is just like we've identified the gross polluters, so to speak. Commercial seems to be, by and large, the biggest portion of it.
From an aerial standpoint of 10,000 feet, yeah, but from a day-to-day standpoint, not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
You're walking down the street and suddenly at night you're taking a walk, and all of a sudden, bam! Somebody's motion sensor light blinds you.
Well, that's going to be a much harder sell than lights that are on continuously.
Right, and lights that are on continuously.
Bang for the buck is commercial, and people who leave 1,000-watt floodlights on all night, right?
I think what when we talked about and decided on as a subcommittee is that we were going to make and correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, is that we decided decided to do commercial. I know, but Carl's on there too, so I'm trying to get
Carl's
him
on there too.
in.
Oh, okay.
Is that we were going to do a mandatory program for commercial and then ask for voluntary compliance on the residential side and see how that goes. We can change that, but that was what we had agreed on as a subcommittee.
Yeah, there could be
whatever it was.
Like a more phased-in option, at least for residential, and maybe a little, basically a stricter approach with commercial. Yeah. That was my memory, Barbara. So.
Okay, so let's get that committee fired up too. And we have lots of work to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got a tentative suggestion for July 2nd. Could everybody please email me after the meeting? Let me know if that works.
Got it.
I assume litmus science fair judging. What's up with that? I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do this year.
Yeah. So that happens at the beginning of the year. So typically,
we got a while.
Yeah, we have a while, but I'll have to reach out to the director there to see if they're considering doing that.
Probably like December, January 21.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, we have time.
280 South Hill Funds. I assume that we've funded the $96,000 for the Guadalupe Trail project consultant, and then I don't know. I believe the rest of it's being held in abeyance, so we're ready to move forward with that. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Tree issues. My favorite. I would like us to formally establish a tree technical advisory committee for the city of Brisbane.
Sure.
Similar to what we have, the San Bruno Mountain Habitat Conservation Plan has a TAC. The county, parks has a TAC for various other things, technical advisory committee. And I think it's time that we I think people are realizing how valuable our urban forest and our habitat forests are. And I think it's really important that we have a technical advisory committee that includes people like Sean Sweeney, that includes people like me. I would like to be on that committee. I do have a degree in botany. And, different people who really understand what's going on, that we can, consult, and not just not just the city planning department or, but really people who have a vested interest in the tree canopy in Brisbane and there are a lot of issues there. But having a sort of a technical advisory committee, I think, is a good start to work on that.
I would second that notion. Do we need to actually take a vote on that?
I think we need to ask Karen where we go from here on that, because there are a lot of tree issues, including our poor Christmas tree. Oh, it's killing me. But, so instead of having these we don't know what's going on, I love that there's a new page. I can't wait to go look at it. But, and even right now, there's some conflict about taking out the trees at the corner of, across from the elementary school. So I think that, first of all, knowing in advance, being able to take care of our trees, making sure any trees on city property are ivy-free. That's number one in my book, because that's the number one killer and cause of poor tree health. Okay.
Karen's been catted.
Yeah, somebody wants attention, sorry.
Somebody just doing a walk by. Mine are all asleep now, and I had some issues earlier. So So I think that this is an important issue. And so Karen, where do we go from here?
Well, you had asked about putting this on the agenda, but we'd already noticed what the agenda was for the meeting. So it would, ideally, the subcommittee would make a recommendation, and the whole committee could talk about it at the next meeting.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's fair.
Barbara, Mary, Michelle.
Okay, so we need to have a subcommittee meeting before the next meeting.
I mean, you can even do it with a phone call if that's,
Yeah. Karen, do you want to be participatory in that, correct? Glenn?
Well, I just have a question. What would a technical advisory committee do? I mean, it sounds to me like if it's really going to be a technical advisory committee, that at least one person on it would need to be a certified arborist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sean Tweeney is.
So, what do you have in mind for this technical advisory committee to do?
Yeah, that's going to be a lot harder to pull together.
So, well, Karen, can we discuss this now, or do we need to discuss it in our subcommittee meeting and then discuss it next meeting under the agenda?
Thank you for asking. I'm a little reluctant to.
Yeah, no, I think it needs to be a subcommittee.
Yeah.
So, it's already 8:30, guys. We're kind of.
Yeah. So my recommendation on that right now is anybody on OSEC who is interested in having input in that, please send an email to Karen outlining what you think a tree technical advisory committee would look like and what it would be composed of. And then we can review, if you do that this week, we can review it when we have our tree issues subcommittee meeting. And it can help formulate our recommendation.
I have a question. Does the city already work with anyone when it comes to tree maintenance? Do they have anyone that they currently talk to?
Yes, they do. They have two different companies that they generally work with. One is JD Tree, and the other is Tim Chang, Humboldt Tree Service.
They also work with Laurel.
And okay. So, but this is separate from that. This is more like we'll discuss it in the subcommittee, and then we will have an open discussion at our next meeting agenda. So the next is the benchmarking ordinance. And Karen, can you reach out to Mary, me, and Barbara and schedule us a meeting?
Yeah.
Thank you. I know it's your favorite subject.
Yeah.
Benchmarking ordinance. I believe right now it's just we're waiting for feedback on what we've already done, correct?
Sorry, I couldn't get my mute button to pull up. Yeah, there's not really anything, I think, from the liaisons at this point in time. And I think once we have some content for them to review, we will be in touch. Otherwise, my staff update probably covered everything.
Okay. And then the last item is on the beautification. Megan was our liaison with the council and Parks and Rec. And obviously, for obvious reasons, she can't do that right now, unfortunately. So we need to appoint a new person. Is this, Karen, is this or Adrian, is this a committee that's been meeting?
Did you check? You checked.
I asked, I checked with Angel today, and she said they have not been meeting. She's not sure if or when, well, when they would, begin working together again. So I think it's, up to the group if we want to appoint someone now or come back to it next month, or it doesn't seem like there's necessarily an imminent need. But
okay. So when Megan's status was in question about this, because I had volunteered to fill in the role, and I still will volunteer to fill in the role, but I think that when we have new members of the committee, it may be one of those people may wish to be appointed to this.
Yeah.
And so if there's any kind of meeting that comes up in the meanwhile, I'm happy to do it, or is there someone else who wants to do it? I don't want to leave it undone. That's my concern.
So I would suggest that we pick someone for now, and in case something comes up in between now and whenever new members are appointed, I think on our calendar we may have a kind of review subcommittee list at some point later in the year, which I assumed that we would probably do maybe a month or two after any new members were seated. So okay. I would just say I think it would be good to decide amongst the group who is going to be that person between now and that point in time, if they do have meetings or make any decisions between now and then.
Well, I'm willing to do it unless someone else has a burning desire to do it. Anybody?
Nope.
All right. I guess, do we vote on that, or do we just do it?
I think you just do it.
Okay. So, Adrian or Karen, you can swap me in there and make sure that I know about it so that I can attend if I need to. Okay?
I will let Angel know that you will be taking over in that role and have them coordinate with you if they are moving forward with any meetings.
Michelle, do you want me to send you the stuff of the last few minutes meetings that we had?
I would love that, Megan. Absolutely love it. Okay. Thank you so much. Oh, Megan, I'm just going to miss you on this committee so much.
I know. We'll chat.
Yeah. Okay. Next is calendar items. Adrian?
Oops. Sorry. Here we go.
Oh, I'm surprised every slot's not canceled due to COVID. Sorry.
Not all of them, but I did have to make an awful lot of updates to this calendar, and I think the kind of overriding message would be flexibility. Like, I put in what I thought might actually happen, but obviously I think we all are learning the need to be flexible. So I don't have, I didn't have anything when I made this calendar on the key agenda topics for July and August. It sounds like July, the tree technical advisory committee will be one agenda item. We will see if anything else comes up. In the fall, we do typically have presentations from on the vegetation management report and from scavenger. So likely would be able to move forward with both of those, hopefully. Around November, I'm thinking we may be ready to have a presentation on the building efficiency program as we move from our kind of implementation phase into getting ready for actual compliance cycle next year. And then disposable foodware ordinance. We had actually planned to have county staff come talk with us in April, and we're hoping to move this forward. The county adopted their ordinance in late February and had originally wanted cities who were going to adopt a follow-on ordinance to do that by August, and then the shutdown happened, and food businesses are in a very difficult place right now, and we didn't feel like this was probably the ideal time to try to move forward with that ordinance. We also learned recently from the county that they dropped that August deadline, so they have not set a new deadline. It sounds like they're going to probably keep it open-ended. And then, you know, also considering that the council isn't going to be meeting in July or August, and then I will be out for a few months. So we're hoping that by the end of the year, maybe things will settle down and we'll be able to pick that back up again and move forward with it.
Adrian?
Yes.
I know this is radical, but I'm thinking that we might still be able to have a coastal cleanup day if we re-engineer how we're looking at it. Okay? That
you should mention it.
I'm just thinking that if we if we had, you know, like social distancing, picking up garbage, you know, and everybody wears gloves and masks anyway, I'm thinking that we could do that. I think we could do this.
I think we'll probably have to discuss that.
Okay.
What we heard, and I can let Bob, if you would like to jump in and talk about this, since you're the one who's getting this directly from the county and the state.
So the state, they're canceling the coastal cleanup day, and they're trying to turn it into like a coastal cleanup month that's going to be more self-directed. So they haven't had an official meeting yet with the site captains, but that was the only email I got regarding it, was that they're going to come up with, figure out a way, do like a self-directed, maybe clean up your neighborhood kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So we're on they said they'll be setting more details shortly and scheduling a meeting with site captains. So I will brief everybody when that comes in, but Jeff and Adrian and I talked about that, and that seems like, since everything else is a wait and see, that would be a good thing. We could join in with that kind of phase and figure out a way to promote, you know, like every Saturday in September, clean up or whatever their messaging is, so we're on the same page with them.
Yeah, although we might be able to do something a little bit more coordinated where people spread out and they have garbage bags that they fill up, and then somebody comes along and picks them up, so we don't congregate together. But let's talk about it if you want to brainstorm that at all. The other thing I've noticed in that regard is there is an incredible amount of garbage building up at the freeway off-ramp at, you know, to Brisbane off of 101 at Lagoon, you know. And I know that before you called somebody to get them the county or somebody to come clean it up, I mean, it is worse than it is I've ever seen it.
Southbound or northbound off-ramp?
Pardon?
I said probably because
northbound.
Southbound off-ramp.
Right at the off-ramp?
Yeah. It's that whole area from the off-ramp to the corner of Lagoon Way.
Okay. I will look and see where the Caltrans right-of-way is and put in a service request, because, yeah, before they responded right away. But I'll do a drive-by and see if I can see which area you're speaking of. I haven't been coming in much, so I'll take a look and reach out with a service request. It'll
be really obvious. And then also if the area that Caltrans does, and then if any of the property is part of the Baylands, they need to clean that up too. It's just disgusting, and it's becoming a health hazard. I mean, people just stop there and park and throw out their garbage. It's horrible. Okay. Anything else on calendar? Do we have any chair and committee matters?
Well, I have one thing on calendar. So on the acres vegetation management, we had talked about last year or earlier this year whether the committee would want the normal presentation that we get from our restoration team, or maybe do a hike and actually show us some of the things that they do and what they're trying to get to grow and what they're trying to get rid of. Yeah, and if it were summer, we could do it at our regular time.
Hike.
Very good idea.
Socially distanced hike.
I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. Everybody's on board?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe it might make sense to try to do that in August when we have the longer days still.
Sure. Yeah. Although we don't have an August meeting scheduled at this point, but I guess we will.
But then maybe we would. We were thinking when Adrian was gone, we would probably not have one of those meetings, August, September, October. So maybe we would have an August and not have a September.
Okay.
Or maybe we do this instead of the meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could, if we email, we could still do some meeting stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, I think we did something like that once when we did it for.
Yeah, we went to look at that really cool house that got built. Not house, but like triplex.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds awesome. And then chair and committee matters.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any chair and committee matters?
I do.
Okay, Barbara?
Adrian, I wanted to circle back around and see where we are on that tree canopy inventory. I know it's probably been derailed by COVID-19, but I'm hoping not. Can you tell me otherwise?
My recollection, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, is I believe we put some money in the 2020-21 fiscal year, or we had requested months back, money in the 2021 fiscal year to do that inventory, and I am not sure if that is still in the budget or not.
Could you please follow up, let us know? I mean, I know that
I think Karen may.
Oh, cool.
No.
No, I think that it was talked about postponing, but I have not heard officially, so we should follow up. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's actually, I mean, in terms of jobs that actually can happen during the shutdown, because it's like a single person outside, it's something that could happen, and I think it would be great if we could go ahead and get that information, and then we have more information about what's going on with our urban forest, and then we're ready to take action when things starting to lighten up a little bit. So I would like to push, and I didn't realize it went all the way out to 2021.
Well, 2020-2021 fiscal year.
Okay.
Like July 1 to.
Okay.
And
okay. Then that
if I can jump in.
Yeah.
It's not related, so it wouldn't have been funded until July 1, and the idea of postponing it or removing it was because of the economics, things that could be carved out of the budget that were like one-time expenses that could be postponed because of the drop in revenue from hotel tax and sales tax and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's still, a target, so it'd be pushed out a year or two, and I have to confirm that was just a discussion when it was considered.
All right. Disappointing, but understandable.
We all wanted this to be something that we had a document to work from and go forward, so it is disappointing. I agree.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I wasn't asked, I was told.
Okay.
Hey, Karen, I have a question.
No.
Is it possible to get the methodology they use, and maybe we could use some citizen science to do this?
That was kind of what I was thinking.
What do you think?
Well, we didn't even get proposals yet, so in terms of getting them the methodology, I'm not sure that I'm the expert.
Well, I'm thinking maybe we could do some research and do this on our own.
Cal Fire has a program. When I was at a conference, and they were talking all about like, hey, yeah, they sounded like they were handing out the program like candy. So I would, maybe I can find that business card I got from Cal Fire and reach out to them and see if they've got.
That'd be really good. Yeah. Because this might be something we could do ourselves. I will say this, everyone should be really aware. I don't know how many of you guys watch the council meetings and watch the budget meetings, but the city of Brisbane needs to tighten its belt, because individuals are not the only ones who are suffering through COVID, and our city coffers, thank God for Stuart, he manages our money really well, but
God for Stuart.
We are, there is not the amount of revenue coming into the city that was normally anticipated for this time frame.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I usually watch the budget, but I gotta admit I've missed this cycle.
I watched it.
Yeah, okay. I also want to just say that I appealed the removal of the trees on San Bruno across from the school. That's all I want to say about it, because it's something I'm doing as an individual. But I did feel like not mentioning it would be conspicuous. And then there was something else too. Oh yeah, I've had, so everybody's going garden crazy because of the pandemic. We're all at home. We're all looking at our spaces, and a lot of people are like really engaged and improving their spaces. And we're a very lucky community in that a lot of us do have gardens, although not all of us, that we can retreat into. I've had at least 2 people from the community ask me after the mulch of the compost drop if we could organize a chip drop. And I think it would just be a nice thing to do for the community. It's very important to me that we work with Davy Tree because I've gotten chips in my personal experience for our yard from a dozen different companies. And Davy Tree is the only company I work with that seems to have the really large equipment that really produces something that's more like a chip that you are used to buying bagged in the store, and as opposed to something that's more like a mulch that's all like fine and leafy. So I will also say that my years of working with Davy Tree, it is wonderful company and nearly impossible to get them to keep an appointment to come out and drop chips. So I was hoping that if it came from the city, that they would be a little more responsive and following through on that obligation, and then that was just a nice thing we could do for our community. And while everybody's, like I said, spending all the time in their yard looking at it and being like, I should really fix this up and I could get some chips, What does everybody else think?
I think, Karen, maybe you could reach out to Davey and see what they say. We need to wrap it up. It's a few minutes before 9.
Yeah.
But it's a good idea, Barbara. The mulch the compost went over.
Yeah, I don't know about it being their obligation, but we can certainly see if they have something available.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Any other chair and committee matters? I would just like to say that I'm really happy that Mary and Carl have taken on the new roles that they have. And I really hope that everybody has a dedication to the Open Space and Ecology Committee, and we continue to do really good things in the coming year, even with all the challenges that we have. And I'm sorry, I feel like my year as the chairperson went, and we missed meetings, but that's okay, because I really enjoyed it, and I really love working with all you guys. So let's look forward to meeting on July 15th, and we've got a lot of subcommittee meetings that need to get scheduled in the meanwhile. And anything else, Adrian or Karen?
I just want to say thank you to Meg for contributions and for coming tonight just so that we can see you and say that to you.
I agree.
Guys. You guys have been amazing.
Yep, thank you.
So I'll consider, what my options are here, but I will miss you guys if I don't see you. I'll come on a couple of these.
We'll miss you too.
Yeah.
Well, Megan, you can always come and participate as a citizen, We know how much you love it.
I just want to remind everybody that July 15th is the 2020 tax day.
Right.
Back because of COVID-19, so you better get your taxes done early enough that you can come to the meeting.
Yeah, and
my accountant's already been harassing me.
Let's all put it on our calendar so we don't accept any conflicting appointments, so that we can all be here and ready to start exactly at 6:30 for our next meeting. So I look forward to that. And I move that we adjourn.
I'll
second. Beat you.
And do we need to do a roll call for that, Adrian?
We don't normally take a vote to adjourn, so I think we're okay.
Okay, well, I don't have a gavel to pound, but it was nice seeing all of
bang on something. Bang on something.
Yeah. There
you
go.
It
was nice seeing all of your sweet faces, and I look forward to our next meeting.
Keep on
great. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. And Adrian, you take care of that little bump you have there.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
Let me know if you need any baby toys.
Yeah. Save those baby toys, Ross.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, good night.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.